Are you looking to grow revenues, increase profitability, or obtain financing? If so, you came to the right place.
Running a business is all about leadership. How do you become a better leader? Learn from the successful entrepreneurs and business owners how to lead your organization more effectively. That's why we created Leadership Live at 8:05, Talking Small Business, to help you succeed with your host, Andrew Frazier, Business Growth Pro and CFO and founder of the Small Business Pro University. Every Tuesday evening at 8 p.m. Eastern, we're joined by experienced entrepreneurs and business owners who share their secrets to success via live stream. Also, every Friday morning, we release a new podcast episode. Either way, you will learn about developing your business leadership skills from our roster of highly performing guest experts. Leadership Live is one of the many valuable resources provided through the Small Business Pro University, empowering business owners to learn, profit, and grow. Find out more at sbpro.com.
Good evening and welcome back to Leadership Live at 8:05. I'm your host, Andrew Frazier, and excited to hang out with you once again on Tuesday evening. As you know, each week we have a special guest and we really talk about topics that can help you be more successful as a business owner. At the end of the day, your business can only go as far as you're prepared to lead it. So it's very important to continually develop your leadership skills. And how better to do that than learning from other leaders and learning about business so you can be more knowledgeable of a leader to lead your business better. So that being said, tonight's topic I'm excited about. We're going to talk about work on your business and scale. As you know, I created the Masterpreneur Playbook, which takes you from startup to scaling through 5 steps of your business. And today, we're going to talk to someone who's done pretty much all of the steps with his business. So we'll be able to talk a little bit about the whole journey, which is very exciting. So can't wait to begin talking about it. So our guest today is Gene Bohensky. He's the CEO of Archer Contact Solutions. And, he's also been a business coach with Tab and a sales consultant, and many other things. So he's got a wealth of knowledge and experience, and that's really what's allowed him to transition through the steps so quickly with this business. So let me invite Gene on. Gene, how are you doing tonight?
Hey, great, Andrew. Thanks for having me on.
No problem. Thanks for joining us. I know you're busy and doing a lot of things. We just talked about your schedule and it's like insane, but in a good way. And that's just part of scaling. When you're scaling, there's so much going on, but it's important to manage it. So before we get started, you've been a guest on the show a few times because you always have great things to share. Generally, we only have people on once, but today we're going to talk about your journey with Archer Contact Solutions because it's really impressive. But before we get to that, just take a minute, talk a little bit about who you are, your background, and sort of how you got on to this journey of Archer Contact Solutions, and then we'll take some time to unpack it and talk about each of the 5 steps that you're going through. Sound good?
Sure.
Okay.
Well, I started my career as an engineer and wound up right away in sales. And I worked my way through a number of companies and worked with some smaller companies in sales. When I became a part owner and started, I enjoyed working, as a part owner with business owners. Later, I started a small luxury chocolate company, which I sold, and I did everything wrong. And that's what got me into business coaching 10 years ago. So 10 years ago, I started the Alternative Board of Northern New Jersey, which is a franchise business coaching system. I love business coaching because I love helping business owners, and also I had that experience myself of growing and selling a business, and I wanted to warn everybody of all the things not to do. But kind of as an aside to this, I hired a caller from the Philippines to help make some appointments for me to contact business owners as a beginning tab coach. And it's there that I met my now business partner. As part of Tab, we started outsourcing people really from her network at first. And that's how that really started. It really started organically out of my business coaching practice. That's later on we realized that we were onto something, but we had a specific problem to solve, and that was it was very difficult to manage all these virtual assistants working out of their homes in very far off distant places. We couldn't manage them. We couldn't see what they were doing. We couldn't train them. And we realized we had a logistical problem. So that's where Archer's Contact Solutions was born, out of the need to start a real company to find better people to train and manage.
Hey, excellent. So, one thing that's constant is change. And, no matter what business you have, it's going to evolve. And you evolve as your customers evolve, as your suppliers evolve, as your employees evolve. So, it's sort of like a evolution to where you are now. So, even though over the past, year and a half, almost 2 years, you've really had Archer's Contact Solutions. It's probably 10 plus years in the making, with a lot of the other things that you've done as well. So that's great. So before we get started, we do the Leadership Live at 8:05. We do it through the Small Business Pro University. So here's a little bit about what the Small Business Pro University is all about. Many small businesses experience low or no revenue growth, and the owners are not making enough money. I founded Small Business Pro University to help you break that cycle by empowering you with greater knowledge and enhanced skills to lead your organization more effectively. Over the past 15 years, I've collaborated with organizations like the Small Business Development Center, Rising Tide Capital, Empower the Village, NJMEP, Rutgers University, and SCORE to work one-on-one with over 1,000 business owners and teach tens of thousands of people about business. My experience includes serving as a naval officer, managing businesses, graduating from MIT, earning an MBA from NYU, and achieving the CFA designation, which has prepared me to accomplish my mission of helping 1,000,008 business owners to sell more, maximize profit, and finance growth by 2028. My vision is to create the ultimate business ecosystem for entrepreneurs. Small Business Pro University empowers entrepreneurs like you to run their businesses more professionally and create sustainable enterprises. We employ my proven proprietary Masterpreneur Playbook framework to guide your journey along the Masterpreneur path and facilitate your Masterpreneur evolution to work on your business and scale faster and easier. Small Business Pro University provides access to valuable resources, partnerships, and relationships that will help you to sell more, maximize profit, and finance growth. Our Masterpreneur initiatives include the Small Business Pro Network, 100 plus expert-led multimedia courses, intensive training workshops, Spanish language training, Leadership Live at 8:05 live stream and podcast, in-person Power Breakfast events, and advisory coaching, consulting, and training services. Okay, welcome back to Leadership Live. I'm your host, Andrew Frazier. I'm here with Gene Bohensky, and we're going to talk about working on your business and scaling. Working on your business. Everybody says you should work on your business instead of in your business, but most business owners and businesses never really ever do that successfully. It's one of the hardest things that you can do, and probably about 5 out of 100 businesses may actually be able to do that successfully. So it's not something that most businesses end up doing, but it's something you can do and learn how to do. And that's what I laid out in the Masterpreneur Playbook. So we're going to talk about, how Gene's business went through 4.5 steps of what's outlined in the Masterpreneur Playbook and how it matches up really well with what we have there. So let me just walk through what the Masterpreneur Playbook is. And also just want to make sure everybody knows that this week is Power Week. We put out the plan of the week, and it's Power Week because this week we have the Power Breakfast, we have the Power Network event. So if you're in New Jersey, you need to be at the Power Breakfast on Friday morning. Either that, or if not, Thursday evening, you should be at the Power Network event. Power Network's in Union, New Jersey at the Boss Loft, and the Power Breakfast is in Kenilworth, New Jersey at Galloping Hill Golf Course, and our featured guest speaker is Wallace Santos. So you'll learn more about that as we go, and I'll put a link in the chat, but definitely something you don't want to miss. So Gene, you talked a little bit about your business, and you're familiar with the Masterpreneur Playbook because we had talked about it as I was developing it, and then afterwards you started living it, which is pretty exciting. Talk a little bit about your perspective on it, and some of the things that you're experiencing that, or actually, should I introduce it first, or you want to share a little bit about what it is and how it's matched up with what you're doing?
Well, I would say it's a great matchup because when we started Archer's Contact Solutions, it was based upon a lot of the things that we were doing. We were kind of intentional in understanding how you're working on the concept of your business, right? You're working then on your business or in your business, then you're working on your business, and then you're managing people that are doing the work for you. And then as a CEO, you're scaling and managing the management team. So that we were able to think about the concept that was kind of built on what we were doing, right? And then we went into actually managing those people and actually doing that work ourselves. Then we established a management team. And when we established the management team, we then kind of solidified the processes and procedures. And then when you're scaling, you got to have all that kind of defined. You got to have to know what you're doing, know who your target is, and have something that's repeatable.
Okay.
The biggest thing in practical terms is once you have a concept of your business, and most of the people that you have that have businesses, they're working on the business. Maybe they didn't have a strong concept. Maybe they're just at number 2 working in their business. That's where a lot of people, they kind of stall out, right? And they stall out because the key to first working and moving yourself forward, and this is the hardest thing. And I've learned this through probably over 100 discovery calls with business owners looking for VAs. The hardest thing that has to be overcome is your willingness to actually teach somebody else to do work for you. Because most business owners don't want to do that or have a hard time doing that. Where you're actually going to hire somebody and teach them to do the work that you're doing and offload the work. I mean, that's like the number one person that we talk to, right?
Hmm.
That's the first thing you need to do. That's the first thing every business owner needs to do, which is why the most important thing any solopreneur or any business owner needs to do is hire a VA. And the first reason you hire a VA is so you teach yourself how to train a VA. Because once you train the first employee that you have, you can train two, three, four, and five. Once you learn how to offload, segment your work and offload it to other people, that's how you can build a management structure and realize, well, that person needs to do this, and that person needs to do this, and that person needs to do this.
Okay.
When you're up to 10 people, you realize there's no way you could do the work of 10 people. And unless you did that, you'd be stuck, self-limited by the amount of time and energy you have in a day.
So no, I mean that's incredibly important, and like you said, it's a learning process. You got to develop your leadership and management skills, and if you've never had anyone work for you, there's a lot of trial and error. And having a VA, it's a lot less expensive. Your errors, and it gives you a good chance to practice and learn on someone new to working. So let's go back and take a look at each step, and then I just want to talk through kind of what you did in each step. So, if we go back to the Masterpreneur Playbook, it lays out the 5 steps that your business has to take, going from working on the concept of your business to working in your business to working on your business to working on the future of your business to scaling your business. And at each corresponding step, there's a role and there's an evolution that you have to make as a business owner, going from the entrepreneurial phase to employee supervisor phase to the manager phase to executive and CEO. And each one of those phases, you have to take on a different role and responsibility, but you also have to backfill because the role you are in still has to get done. So you've got to develop your team so that you can move forward, because you can only move forward as far as your organization can support it. So let's start at step 1. When you started the business, working on the concept of your business, you're really an entrepreneur. You're focused on problem solving, developing your business plan, trying to find the right market and refine your product. So talk a little bit about that stage, because I think you actually ended up going in a different direction than you had planned. So talk a little bit about that, how that happened.
Sure. So what ended up happening is for many years I was providing kind of help, not full-time VAs. We were either doing lead generation programs or help for certain businesses doing certain roles. And when we discovered that it was so difficult to manage people, we discussed this with my partner in the Philippines, and she had a background in managing call centers, and she had contacts of people that gave contracts to callers. A lot of them are paid for performance contracts. And we discussed, continuing what I was doing. I really didn't see the vision of where the company was now, what we're doing now, until getting into it and doing some testing. But we decided to start with some of these contracts that were paid for performance contracts. And we hired a whole bunch of people to do that. And that didn't work, that the paper performance contracts were not successful. At the same time, we were also finding out that people wanted virtual assistants working out of their homes. One of them was you. You were the one who said, maybe you should look at concentrating on virtual assistants. So we started testing that out, and that really resonated. And I think the combination of the fact that people are working out of an office, that we can train them, we can watch them, we can help them grow, really, really resonated with any of the clients that we had. And so as we were working, through the concept and working in the business, right, I also had clients where I was working with the VAs providing lead generation services, which I was working, in it. Working on the future of the business, which is was that step 4, correct? We were looking at how are we going to expand, because we had to expand, right, in order to grow. And so as you move through those categories, you realize you do a survey of what's working. What's working in your business? Where is the potential? At any given point in your business growth, you're going to be self-assessing where you are, and you'll see there'll be opportunities that open up that you didn't see before. In our case, that was important. I also made a decision at the same time to look for other ways to get leads, and I discovered a place, a lead aggregator that we could sell, that would sell us leads, and we got a lot of inquiries and we got business that way. Some of it was the wrong business, but we learned very quickly, right? So the point is that when you get into something, you need to learn and fail fast. You need to figure out what's successful, because if you want to scale, you got to scale something that's repeatedly successful, not just sporadically successful. It has to be something that is repetitive, that can kind of go by itself.
So excellent. So let me just go back to step 1 a little bit, because some key things is step 1. It's about problem solving and figuring out what your product is and your target market is, and it turned out to be totally different than what you thought.
That's right.
And that's why it's important to continually assess where you are, and like you said, it's about problem solving. What's the right solution? Because definitely if you hadn't figured that out and pivoted, you'd have been in trouble. So
that's right.
So that's and when you're working on the concept of your business, one of the most important things is really you've got to develop your plan, and the more time and focus you have working on your business, that helps you to move through the future steps faster. If you don't do the work up front, then you're going to be stuck in the next stage longer. So definitely that was key. So you got started, you learned, you started out working in your business, working on, call center piece, found that wasn't really the business that you wanted to be in, and pivoted while you're working on it, working in it. So now one thing that it's, important to say is, they always say that you need industry experience. And you were going into the call center industry, and how much experience and understanding did you have of the industry?
Personally, not very much.
Okay.
Other than my own understanding of doing sales, right? I was relying on my partner's call center experience. She had experience managing people, understood a little bit about how to structure the business in terms of, how many agents per manager, and some of that kind of stuff she knew, and we implemented some of those things. But we also tried other kind of calling campaigns, and really found them to be too risky, right? So we found that when people that come to you for calling, they're often doing tests themselves, right? And then you're given campaigns that can't be successful, right? And you're testing somebody else's concept, and you hope that they pay you at the end, right? If it's not successful, otherwise, they could be blaming you for not being able to sell when in fact they didn't really have an offer that was worth it to begin with, or they didn't give you good leads, or they didn't give you a good script. And
Right.
so, like, I actually from doing enough of those campaigns, that I kind of got a bad taste in my mouth, and I'm like, well, I'd rather not do them, right?
Mhm.
Because the people that were more satisfied with our service were people that gave us real work to do, right? The real virtual assistance work, bookkeeping work, social media work, web design work, any type of other business work, even if it's just customer service or inside sales work. Um, People were more satisfied with that, and then we also started getting work with customers that were companies that were a little bit more established, that already had some processes, that already had some success, and they weren't relying on us to make them successful. I mean, that's you don't want to rely. I mean, if you have a business and you're relying on one outsourced caller to make your business successful, there's something wrong with that,
Right.
right?
So no, and you were basically taking their risk on a certain
Right,
level,
right, right. You take their
which
risk.
which really isn't a good situation to be in. So so definitely that, and I think we had talked, and one of the other key things was the culture of your business and how you know you treat your employees and would have to treat your employees in that type of environment versus the environment that you're in.
Well, that's right. I mean, one of the things that we did early on, my partner and I did early on, is we established a real vision of how we wanted to treat our employees. And it's really important when you're dealing with an overseas, when you have cultural differences, that in order to have people be successful, in some cases you have to overcome some cultural differences, right? Because in a lot of um, older cultures that are more hierarchical, right? That don't really allow people to express themselves or have an opinion, right? So you have to train them and show them a culture that allows them to thrive and add value, right? So when you're dealing with a culture, a more traditional culture where that doesn't really happen in real life, for many of these people, it's really new to them because they come from families where they never talk about each other. They never talk about how they feel. They never talk about their dreams. They never talk about what they want in life. Those discussions are just not had, right? I mean, it's hard to explain, but um, some cultures, especially cultures that come from poverty, when you have a culture where you're always worried about where you're going to get your money today and if you're going to eat and what are you going to do today. I've learned those cultures, people don't plan in those cultures because they can't. And so that planning function of what you want to do, what you want to say, where you want to head, how you want to behave, kind of gets turned off, right?
Mhm.
So we kind of have to bring that back and find people and coach people to allow them to express themselves, realize they have an opinion, understand that their experience is valuable, and that the business owners that are going to hire them are going to want them to engage, right, and not just be robotic, because some of these outsourced services companies treat people like robots, especially if they're not owned by American business owners. They treat people like robots, where they're not allowed to say things off script, they're not allowed to say anything personal, they're not allowed to do anything outside the specific tasks that are prescribed for them, and we have to. There's a lot of unlearning that has to happen when we bring people from that kind of culture in our company.
Mhm. And I mean, it's incredible, like how early you thought about culture, and not just the company culture, but the culture of the employees, so you could create the culture that you needed within the company. most small business owners tend to be successful despite their culture. But they would be a lot more successful. And, really one of your most important jobs as a business owner is to manage the culture. So definitely starting that early is great. I'm going to take a quick break now. We talked a little bit about our upcoming Power Breakfast and Power Network events. So just going to share a little bit about them. So definitely if you're in New Jersey, you want to check us out Thursday and or Friday. Join us for the Power Network event at the Boss Loft in Union, New Jersey on Thursday, March 20th. Meet with like-minded entrepreneurs in a relaxed environment to chat, connect, and collaborate. I'm Andrew Frazier. Please join me at our Power Network event, and I look forward to introducing you to our members and friends.
Hey everyone, I'm Sumiko Hartley, owner of Miko New York LLC in the Boss Loft, New Jersey, where I create safe spaces for women entrepreneurs to be nurtured, celebrated, and supported. My mission is simple. It is to empower women to level up their skills, diversify their income so that they can blossom and thrive in business and in life. And that is why I am super excited to be hosting the Power Networking event with Andrew Frazier at the Boss Loft on Thursday, March 20th. So to all my lady entrepreneurs, and this one is for the fellas too, join us on March 20th to connect, to collaborate, and to expand your network with other powerhouse entrepreneurs. Hope to see you there.
To learn more and register, visit www.sbpro.com/power-network today.
When I tell you that you walk into this space and you know it's a different type of energy, are you going to be supercharged? Of course you are. I'm supercharged right now.
Power Breakfast is a great event. It certainly helped me in my business. I've met a lot of referral partners, a lot of clients.
Everyone has an opportunity to connect with small and medium-sized businesses all over New Jersey and really get the most and understand the resources that are out there and available to them.
Hi, I'm Andrew Frazier, Masterpreneur and founder of Small Business Pro University. For more than 10 years, our Power Breakfast events have directly resulted in tens of millions of dollars in both revenue and financing for attendees. Join me at the Power Breakfast in the clubhouse at Galloping Hill Golf Course in Kenilworth, New Jersey on Friday, March 21st to learn best practices, enjoy great networking, and gain useful knowledge. We will supercharge your day.
Today's Power Breakfast was not only inspirational, but I walked away with some tangible skills and techniques that I can put into action in my business when I go home today.
This Power Breakfast theme is work on your business and scale. You don't want to miss our featured guest speaker, Wallace Santos, CEO of Main Gear.
I'm Wallace, CEO and founder for Main Gear Computers. We manufacture gaming PCs and we sell them online, so maingear.com. Today we're considered basically the Ferrari of gaming PCs. Think of really beautiful bespoke computers that are designed for performance and entertainment. That's what we do.
I look forward to seeing you at the Power Breakfast in the clubhouse at Galloping Hill Golf Course in Kenilworth, New Jersey on Friday, March 21st. To learn more and register, visit www.sbpro.com/power-breakfast. Take advantage of early bird pricing by registering today at www.sbpro.com/power-breakfast. All right, welcome back. I'm here talking with Gene Bohensky about working on your business and scaling. So we talked a little bit about working on the concept of your business, going into working in your business. In your business is really about figuring out your best product market fit to make sure that there's enough of a market and you've found the market to be able to sell your products and services and grow. So that's step 2. Step 3 is working on your business. And most businesses never fully successfully do that because you have to go from an employer supervisor to a manager. And the manager's roles and manager's skills are different than an employer supervisor. So your goal is to optimize your business. So Gene, talk a little bit about the management and how you optimize the business and sort of what it took to be able to do that.
Well, one of the things that was a challenge, obviously, is that the business that I'm managing is in the Philippines. It's literally on the other side of the earth. So that presented a couple of challenges because I couldn't do the things that I would naturally do, which, probably made it better for me. I mean, so, naturally I'm somebody who wants to do everything yourself, has a tendency to want to micromanage and watch what people do. Obviously, if it's an organization on the other side of the world, I'm going to have to trust people they're going to have to make the decisions and do the work for you. So that's kind of where I had to make a decision to trust them, right? So a lot of the times, you might wait to trust, but you really should make a decision to trust and tell the person that you're trusting, hey, look, I'm deciding to trust you. I need to trust you at this. I need you to do these certain things, and I need to be able to understand that you're going to do them well, right? That's another step. That's the next step, right? So the step I talked to before about, handing over people and getting people to do the work for you. Now you have to trust people that are going to do the work for you, and let them go and do it the way they want. They can do it, or the way they need to do it, right? So that's where you're managing people and have to trust the people that you're managing. And I think that's another step that's hard for people to take, right? A lot of people can't do that because you can't micromanage, you can't second guess, you got to let them go. And of course, you're talking about, in my case, a lot of them were my clients, right? Could you imagine having, trusting other people to manage your client relationship? That's kind of can be risky, right? So you got to do that. You got to figure out how to do that.
And definitely, like you said, you didn't really have a choice. But
I was forced to, right? So that's one of the things that was probably better for me. I was forced to make it work, not only in another country, but in another culture, right? And you have to establish trust, and you have to talk a lot, and you have to understand a lot, and try to, and also live with the mistakes. I mean, that's the thing that, are you going to get angry when there are mistakes? Are you going to get angry when you lose clients? I mean, yeah, there's times when mistakes were made, clients were lost. I was upset. Most of the time, I've always taken the attitude, and I think this is a truism. It's like anytime there's a problem in your business, either with a client or with anything, it's an opportunity to show your true character. And so it's important to see any problem that comes up as a positive. Because if you could see it as a positive and make it a positive, that's how you'll get through it and grow, right? And I'll explain the difference. I remember I was with a company that always did everything right. They always shipped everything on time, was never any problem, no quality issues. And I met him at a trade show once. He goes, "Oh, I know your company. We never hear from you. We've been buying the same products from you for 10 years, and there's never been a problem." Well, if there's never been a problem, those are actually customers or clients that are easy to lose because there's one part of information they don't have about you, and that is how do you react when there's a problem? What kind of person are you because there's always going to be a problem eventually. How do you handle problems? That's one bit of information they don't have, right? And they can only get that information when there is a problem. It's a paradox.
And also it's about relationships, and you build and strengthen your relationship by working together.
That's right. Right.
So so definitely, and like you said, you have to allow people to learn, allow people to make mistakes, allow people to develop. So you're delegating, and initially they're not going to be able to do as good of a job as you did. And can you handle that in the right way to encourage them to grow? And one of the reasons why you have to optimize your business, if you're going to grow, is you're going to trust people, but like we used to say in the military, you got to trust but verify. And the only way you can verify is if you know the system and you measure performance, so you know what's going on and can get more comfortable. So, what type of systems or processes, how do you get comfortable that things are going the way that you want them to go?
Well, we established there's things we do establish in the company. You have to have some KPIs that you're watching. There's something that you can always watch and see what they're doing. We have KPIs that show, current amount of customers, how many customers, is there a churn rate? Are we losing customers? We also have regular management meetings where we, the way that we work is that we still have that old call center mentality that for every 12 or 15 agents or VAs, we have a manager that manages them. And they're their coaches and their managers, and they help the client relationship between them and the client. And then they also report back their KPIs to us in the management meeting. And they come to us when there are issues. Now, one of the things that I learned from I guess this was from Elon Musk, I learned, who's not always a popular guy these days, but he has one interesting key of management, and that is he comes in and solves problems, right? So that's the one thing I took away from him, was that, he's able to manage a lot of things because he lets people do whatever. He puts good people in their places, and he lets them do what they want. And he only wants to hear the problems, and he wants to hear the problems to see whether he can fix them. And that's kind of the idea that I took. If I'm going to come in and have a management meeting, I don't want anyone to give me, any great stories about what a great job everyone's doing. I want to know the problems so that we can fix them together, and I can teach them how to fix the problems, right? So I think if you have that attitude, then you understand as a servant leader, you're there to help them manage their issues and challenges and help them solve their problems, right? You're not there really to get the platitudes and get the nice reports and how great everything is. I think that's one of the key things why it works, because you also want people to be honest with you and tell you where the problems are. And you can't do that if you get angry at them and you have a culture where people are afraid to bring up challenges, bring up problems.
Definitely, that's important. It always makes me think of the Wiz. Not sure if you're familiar with the Wiz.
A little bit.
A little bit, the Wizard of Oz for Black people.
Oh yeah.
Had Michael Jackson. I actually saw the play live when I was a kid with Michael Jackson and Diana Ross and everybody. I couldn't appreciate how pivotal that was. But one of my favorite parts was the Wicked Witch, and she had a song called "Don't Nobody Bring Me No Bad News," and that's if you're that type of leader, everybody's going to be scared of you, and as a result, nobody's going to take any initiative, and then you're becoming the manager. Managers generally tell people what to do. But if you're going to go beyond working on your business and working on the future of your business, you have to have people managing your business, and you have to develop them. So that's so important. What you're doing to develop people, because anybody who's a good manager hates to be micromanaged. So you have to be able to evolve and be more of an executive, where you're really coaching managers and leading a leader of leaders, which is a whole different skill set than being a manager.
One of the things that I had a boss once who, we were talking about education, and he was talking about his MBA, and I asked him, what did you get out of your MBA? And he has, the most important thing that I got out of the MBA is that there's a lot of things that I didn't know, and for those things I need to bring in experts. So, one of the things that you if you're running an organization, you cannot act like a know-it-all. You cannot. And I was the type of person who was like that when I was younger. But you cannot act as a know-it-all. You have to bring in the experts. There's so many things you don't know, especially when you're running an organization like this across cultural boundaries. You will make assumptions that you don't know. So if there's ever any issues, you have to first do a fact-finding mission. You have to figure things out. And you're going to have to find experts that can help you. Another thing that you have to do is to develop your people. You have to invest in training programs for them. You have to bring in experts that can teach them leadership skills. I mean, you're going to teach them leadership skills by your example. In my case, I've probably filmed 10, 12 hours worth of training videos that, on culture, on business, on certain aspects that all the employees have to see, because I can't be there to train them directly. So I've developed videos for them that they can go watch. And that's proven also very helpful, because again, I'm not there, right? They can't see me. And so, you have to bring in experts, you have to be an example, and you have to find creative ways to communicate with them and bring the culture that you want in your business to succeed. You have to bring that culture in some way. And those are some effective ways that we've done. A lot of my own videos, I think, is another one.
Okay. And that's an important part of creating the culture that you want, is modeling it, is making it important, and having it in front of people. So now you said a couple things that were key. One, as you get bigger, you have to have meetings. You can't not meet and have organized leadership team. You can't, when you're small, you can sort of just do stuff and you talk while you're doing it. But as you grow, you have to have meetings, have clarity around responsibilities. And, the other thing that you said that was extremely important as well is bringing in expertise. Many business owners, they're the smartest person in their business about everything. And that becomes a problem, because then nobody else knows how to do stuff. So then you get stuck doing everything. And many times that's because of maybe a lack of trust, but also because of, within your organization, it's great to promote from within, but that doesn't bring any new knowledge or expertise into your organization. And your goal needs to be everybody who reports to you should be smarter than you and know more about what they're doing for you than you know. So
it takes a bit. That takes a bit of humility.
Yes.
I have one situation with a company that I'm working with. It's a kind of a sad situation where the company owner never was able to develop a management team, never trusted his people, and at the end of his life decides to shut the business down and let everybody go home, not letting anybody in to even help them run it. And, you have to think about, I've seen some really worst case scenarios play out in front of me of people that I've known, right? And so, if you want to be successful, you have to learn how to be successful. I probably, if I took a look at myself 10 years ago or 15 years ago, I was not on this trajectory. I had a lot to learn. Running a VA and remote staffing agency in the Philippines, I'm not an expert on it. There's definitely people who know how to do it better than I do, and people who have. And there's people that are better at running the business than the one you're running, and you need help. Like, for example, as I grow, I'm interviewing CEO coaches. I need to start getting coached by people that have done things that I need to do. Because once you reach over 100 people in your company, because we're over 100 people now, that kind of changes things, right? So if you haven't run a large organization where you don't even know many of your employees, that's like a new level, right? So I've never had experience with that level before, running something like that. And all the people that I've coached and worked with didn't either. I haven't worked for a company that's that large for a long time. Maybe only at the beginning of my career. Most of the companies I worked with were small. You can go into the owner's office. You knew every employee. Now I have a company, I don't know every employee. There's too many. We hire 10 people, 15 people a month. I don't know who they are, right? I go over there three times a year. I'm not able to remember everybody, so it's impossible. So, you have to think about things in a different way in order to make that succeed. And you have to be humble enough to accept the guidance and experience from people that have gone through those things that you haven't gone through yet, right? There are people that have gone through those things, and they can serve as lampposts to get you through that next phase of growth. But you have to kind of look at it that way. You need to find those lampposts. You need to find those coaches and people that will help you through all those stages.
Mm-hmm. And, definitely, that's one of the reasons why I wrote the Masterpreneur Playbook, because it gives you foresight on what to expect and how to prepare for what's going to happen before it happens. And, that's where really experience and perspective comes in and becomes so valuable, especially, you've grown from 0 to over 100 employees in less than 2 years.
Right.
That's not an easy thing to do. If you're not organized, you're going to blow up. If you don't have the culture right, it can turn, into a really negative situation. So, you've been able to do that. But it's because, the next step, working on the future of your business, it's about planning, developing your strategy. How am I going to grow? What do I need to put in place to grow? So like your strategic growth plan. And we've talked a little bit about yours and how you see yourself growing within 5 years. I think you said you want to be at least 1,000 employees, but But not only that, you're thinking about, well, if I have 1,000 employees, what other things do I need to have in place to do it? So talk a little bit about that planning and that, preparation to be able to implement what you want to achieve.
Well, that's key. One of the things that when you are scaling, you have to think big. You have to think 10 times. And the reason why 10 times, that comes from the Rockefeller habits. But when you're scaling, you want to think 10 times if you can scale. Once you have your processes, once you have your systems, once you know your value proposition, now you have to think about, well, if I'm 10 times the size, what am I going to need? Like, what are the things that I'm going to have to do to get there? There's a lot of things. You have to think about your location, how you're going to grow through that size. What is the management team going to look like? How are you going to structure that management team? How are you going to put things in place at the right places and at the right times? So, that you have to go through that exercise, right? In order to do that, it's going to take a lot of contemplation. You want to actually find people that have done it, talk to people that have done it. There's not many of them, which is kind of interesting. The air gets thin. There's not that many founders that take their company to 1,000 people. So, you have, there's a lot of people that like take a smaller company and grow it to 1,000. But how many founders take a company to 1,000 people? I don't know if we'll make 1,000. I don't know if it's going to be possible. We're going to try. And we see the growth accelerating in terms of bringing people on. And that's challenging because, even if you have 1 or 2 people doing sales, let's say we're signing 20 or 30 or 40 clients a month. How do we do that? What kind of infrastructure do we need to do that? And we need to hire 20, 30, 40 people a month. We need to sell. We need to probably make 100 or 200 discovery calls a month. You need people to do that. You need systems to do that. And you're going to constantly need to refine and grow your systems as you scale. And you have to be ready to understand that you're going to go through many iterations before you get there. You're going to change software systems. You're going to change, calling systems and other infrastructure. You're going to invent new positions at your company to do things that, you didn't think you needed to do. So you got to be ready for that.
Right. You got to anticipate all that type of stuff because you're not going to have time to learn it at the time. So really working on the future of your business, you got to do that first. You talked about, one of the big problems is people getting to work. So not only do we have to build our business, but we got to build housing around our business.
Right.
We've got to, you talk about, your employees. You mentioned that, they're working the opposite. They're working our hours, but it's like 12-hour difference. So, just focus on helping them get good sleep and rest and, eating healthy, all those things that, you might not think about, but it's the details that
you got to teach them how
much.
to do these things. If you want to manage the people and take care of them and make sure they're doing a good job, you have to take care of them, right? Make sure they have access to good food. You have to make sure that they can sleep. Make sure they know how to have conversations with their families to allow them to sleep. I mean, some of these things that I actually have videos that I've recorded on, right? Because I told them all, I don't want you in the building if you've only had 4 hours of sleep. You're not going to do any good to anybody, right? So you have to build that expectation, but build that expectation of care and training. And we want to be helpful to everybody. We don't just want to be helpful to our clients. We want to be helpful to the employees, right? If you take care of the employees, they're going to take care of your clients. Excellent.
So we've covered the first 4 steps, working on the concept, working on your business. We talked about less than 5% of businesses ever successfully work on their business. Now, the next step from working on the future of your business, generally less than 5% of the businesses that are working on their business ever successfully work on the future of your business. So you're talking about, few and far between. You're going from 5% to 5% of 5%. And then another 5% of 5% of 5% to actually scale successfully. And, so that speaks to what it really takes to be able to do that successfully, and, the type of person who can evolve through all those different roles. But there's a key, each step, there's a challenge that you have to overcome. And there's also a goal that you have to set while going through the step. And so now you're in the process of scaling. And, there's a couple things, one of the challenges, or two of the challenges is, one, cash flow. And, definitely cash flow is a challenge, but also capacity is a challenge. So talk a little bit about, how those are affecting you and how you mitigate them as you're scaling.
Well, cash flow is always a challenge. That's been a challenge for me at certain points, primarily because you can't always anticipate the cash needs. I would think that I thought I did, but everyone I know that's ever done this has never really anticipated that as much as they really needed. So, one of the biggest things that I teach people now that I've gone through it is like when you're growing your business, you really have to make sure you have access to funding. Your part of your job as a business owner is to make sure you're funding the business. And that's going to need more money than you expect. And there's a couple of reasons. First of all, things always cost more than you expect. There's always things you don't anticipate. People end up paying you later, or you have bad customers or the wrong customers, so payments come in late. Sometimes the growth might be not as fast as you anticipated. We had that happen to us too. We thought we were going to grow faster than we did. Were we growing? Yes. Were we growing fast? Yes. But we thought it was going to be faster, right? So, and that also puts a challenge on the cash flow. Capacity issues, the same thing. When you're dealing with essentially selling the services of people, you have to have people. And there were a couple times when we didn't hire enough people. We just didn't get. We just overlooked hiring for a month, and we were 1 month behind because we didn't have enough agents available, right? So we had to realize that you need to have the capacity of the agents there. Then we had to make sure you had enough equipment. 1 month we ran out of equipment, and that was a tight cash flow month. And we had to figure out how to buy 10 computers and 10 desks and 10 monitors, right? So none of that stuff really always happens according to plan or easily. Thankfully, though, we're kind of over the hump, and we could manage the growth well from here once we've kind of gone over some of that stuff. We were also blessed to have a building with a lot more capacity where we can rent as needed. So there's some good things that we have, but there were some challenges, and they're a challenge for every business owner. And I would say this: if you're a business owner and you're not going through those challenges, you will. That's part of it. It's part of the sleepless nights and the sweating and wondering where the money's going to come. That's all part of it.
Yeah. No, I mean, definitely, when you're growing, cash flow, as long as you're growing, generally it's going to take cash faster than you bring it in most businesses. So, you have to prepare for that. A lot of people look at debt as a negative. Or like, I don't want to take out too much. And I always say you need to get the max, because it's better to have it and not need it than need it and not have it. And, I'm working with someone now, they've got a construction project that I was like, take out everything they'll give you because it's going to cost more than you think. and now they're jammed up trying to raise some money. When you're when you're having cash flow issues, you got to raise the money when you don't.
It's part of what I teach now. Every business owner, you need to have access to financing. You need access to loans if you don't use them. It's part of the job. Even if it's a downturn or it's growth, it's going to take more than you think. And loaning money, debt is not a dirty word if you're growing to scale. If it's planned out well, you need to. I mean, just think of it this way. Look in your own town. The last time a restaurant was opened, somebody had to take out a loan to refurbish the restaurant, buy all the food, and hire all the people. You have to do all that with cash, with money, before you have your first customer, right? So that's the way you start a business. You have to do that.
Definitely. So that's key. And then we talked about capacity. When you're scaling, you're going to have too much capacity at times and not enough capacity at times. And you got to manage that carefully because, like you said, you didn't have enough capacity. So then you were missing out on opportunities. But if you had too much capacity, you're paying people who aren't bringing in money. So, it's a balance. You're building capacity and filling capacity and building. So scaling, there's a lot more to it than it seems like it would be. And you don't want to figure it out as it's happening to you.
That's right.
Because then you're going to make mistakes. And you're not going to prepare your organization for it because it's about more than you. So I know we're a little bit past 9, but we really covered a lot of valuable stuff. Before I let you go, definitely, each week we try and have sort of a top 3. People can only generally remember 3 things. So we just want you to share the 3 key things based on what we discussed that you think people should take away from tonight's conversation. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to play a video about our plan of the week. Those of you who may not know, we do a plan of the week. And it's really something valuable for entrepreneurs and business owners. You can get access to it. I'll put a link to our newsletter. And if you want to see the plan of the week, you can always see it there. So here's a short video and give Gene a minute to kind of think through the top 3 things to take away. Will 2025 be your best year ever? My mission is helping 1,000,008 business owners to sell more, maximize profit, and finance growth by 2028. My vision is to create the ultimate business ecosystem for entrepreneurs. Hi, Andrew here with the plan of the week. As everybody knows, failing to plan is planning to fail. And that's why I created the POW. Incorporating the POW into your weekly routine will help you achieve success faster and easier. Each week, we have a different theme in addition to valuable tips from last week's live stream guest expert, online and in-person events that you don't want to miss, the profile of our member of the week, which could be you, and find out about opportunities for grants, contracts, and other resources. Last but not least, test drive our free mini course of the week on Small Business Pro University. Scroll down through the pile for business tips, opportunities, and more event details. I look forward to helping you make 2025 your best year ever. And always remember, the more that you know, the faster your business will grow. Okay, welcome back to Leadership Live. I'm your host, Andrew Frazier. I'm here with Gene Bohensky, talking small business. Our topic tonight, work on your business and scale. So, Gene, what are the key things that people should be taking away from our conversation tonight?
So the first one I mentioned early on, that if you're a solopreneur or a business owner, you need to get a virtual assistant to learn how to offload your work and give it to somebody else. So that's the first thing. Okay. that I think is important. The second thing is when you're hiring people to manage work, you have to let them actually do the work. Inspire them, trust them. You have to trust them. And you have to tell them that you need to trust them. You have to tell them that you are giving them trust. I mean, I said the same thing to my kids. I said to my kids, I want to be able to trust you, right? Don't do anything that you shouldn't do. Same thing with a manager. You want to trust them. And then the third thing is realize that you're going to need to bring in expertise, especially when you're a leader and you're a servant leader. Everyone knows you're a leader. Everyone knows you're the founder, that you're the intellectual person behind everything. And it's a sign of humility and wisdom to bring in people that can do things better than you can, right? That can train your people if they do leadership training or sales training. Even if you know sales, bring in a sales trainer, bring in someone professional. That's not you. So those are the three things that I think every business owner should think about when they're building and growing a business.
Okay, excellent. Well, I mean, this show's been extremely valuable. Definitely appreciate you taking the time out of your busy schedule to come hang out.
Pleasure.
Thank you, definitely. I've got your LinkedIn profile in the chat, so if people want to connect with you, just check it out in the chat as well. I've got your website, so people can see a little bit more about the business that you created and are scaling right now. So, this is great experience and knowledge that you've grown along the way. And, it's been great working, collaborating with you throughout the process. It's been valuable both ways. So,
well, you've helped me see the vision of what I need to do too. So a lot of it is your fault.
Hey, I've been blamed for worse. So that's great. And, like we said, this is Power Week. So join us at the Power Breakfast or the Power Network event. You'll see Gene there as well. And, we'll take it from there. So, Gene, thanks again. Hang on for a minute as I close things out, and we'll go from here. All right. Well, once again, another great episode. I appreciate everybody's comments and questions. Thanks for, putting them through. Always appreciate that. Definitely, each week we have a great topic, a great guest. Looking forward to next week as well. We're going to talk about mastering the 5 dimensions of customer experience for more sales and profit. Customer experience is becoming more and more important. And it's not something that you can leave to chance. So we're going to learn about kind of how you can, create the customer experiences that's going to differentiate you and your business. So that's next week. Pablo Payet, and looking forward to having the show here. So hopefully you can join us again. And, until then, the more that you know, the faster and more successfully your business is going to grow.
Thank you for listening to Leadership Live at 8:05, Talking Small Business. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and to the podcast on your favorite podcast platform. Leadership Live is one of the many valuable resources provided through the Small Business Pro University, empowering business owners to learn, profit, and grow. Find out more at sbpro.u.com.